One way to do that is through a renewed infrastructure push. Indian governments in the past have not had a favorable reputation when it came to getting things done, particularly with building infrastructure, courtesy India's massive and slow moving bureaucracy. Somehow, the current administration has found a way to turn that around. India is getting noticed globally, and there is chatter that the country's infrastructure rebuilding efforts are gaining steam. This is good news for a nation that has historically struggled to expand its manufacturing base as a portion of the GDP. At present, manufacturing makes up only 13% of India's GDP. And if you are a rich, developed country like the United States, Norway, New Zealand, France, Australia, etc., it's fine. But for a developing country like India, from an employment perspective, manufacturing sector cannot be this small as a share of the nation's GDP. In China, manufacturing makes up 28% of the GDP. Building a world-class infrastructure was one of the key factors behind China's global manufacturing dominance. Take one metric for example. Logistics costs as a share of total production costs in China are between 8 and 10%, as opposed to 18 to 20% in India. This is because freight movement in India, both via highways and railways, is slow and patchy. But if you travel around India now, you will notice that the things are changing. India had planned to spend around $1.3 trillion between fiscal years 2020 and 2025 through its national infrastructure pipeline. They plan to spend this capital on energy, roads, urban infrastructure, railways, and so on. As a result, the national highway construction speed has gone up 6 times of what it was between 2002 and 2010. The road network has gone up 40% in length over the last decade to reach 6.3 million kilometers. Average freight train speed has been up 50% over the last 2 years. Wait time at ports has been down 80% since 2015. The list goes on. But even after all these improvements, India still lags far behind China. Let's focus on just the roads, because road transport carries around 87% of India's total passenger traffic and more than 60% of its freight. The current situation is that the average travel speed on Indian highways is 47 km per hour. Compare that with the United States, where it's more than 100 km per hour, or China, where it's 90 km per hour. India is less than half as efficient. Now, one of the reasons for this could be that even though India is increasing the pace of the road construction, not enough high-speed corridors are being built. See, when we say India's total road network is 6.3 million kilometers long, that includes national highways, state highways, district roads, and rural roads. National highways are of prime importance here because they carry over 40% of the country's road traffic while making up only 2% of the nation's total road network. These are relatively high-speed roads, but not all these national highways are access controlled either. Again, which causes traffic interruptions, bringing down the average travel speeds. To truly make a difference, you need access controlled highways that provide uninterrupted traffic flow if you are on it. The fact is, at present, only 3,900 kilometers of high-speed corridors are operational in the country. Granted, this figure will rise to about 11,000 kilometers by 2026-27, but even then, it will still be a tiny fraction of the total road network. Clearly, a lot more needs to be done. Recognizing this fact, India is now planning to rework the scheme that was launched back in 2017. Bharatmala Pariyojana, launched in 2017, envisioned to build about 40,000 kilometers of highways that would link several of the existing road infrastructure while providing better connectivity to various industrial corridors. And contracts for some 27,000 kilometers of roads have already been awarded. Those contracts will remain in force, but the rest of the scheme is now withdrawn. Instead, this Bharatmala Pariyojana will now be subsumed or replaced by an even more ambitious Vision 2047. Through this, the goal is to build 50,000 kilometers of access controlled highways and expressways crisscrossing the country, So no matter how remote of a place you live in, this plan would provide commuters access to these faster expressways at a distance of 100 to 125 kilometers from any point in the country. Once completed, India's average speed on the highways should double to 85 km per hour. It will lead to reduced fuel consumption, reduced pollution, and with it, logistics costs will come down, making manufacturing in the country that much more attractive. The current infrastructure building boom in India is visible in the data also. The GFCF, or asset creation in the economy, has reached 30% of the GDP from the low 20s in 2000s. It's still well below what China achieved at its peak, but India is moving in that direction.